Ulrich Beck's Risk Society Towards a New Modernity, published in 1986, Risk Society Towards a New Modernity by Ulrich Beck is a seminal work that redefines how we perceive and interact with the social, economic, and environmental changes brought about by modernization. Beck introduces the concept of the risk society, where modernity itself generates risks that increasingly define our existence. This analysis explores the book's key themes, its implications for understanding contemporary society, and its relevance in addressing modern challenges. Modernity and risk. Beck's Risk Society challenges the optimistic assumption that modernity is primarily a source of progress and development, while acknowledging the achievements of industrial society, economic growth, technological advancement, and improved standards of living. Beck argues that these successes have also created new forms of hazards and uncertainties. These risks are not limited to isolated incidents, but are systemic, global, and often invisible. Modern risks differ fundamentally from the dangers faced in pre-industrial societies. Traditional risks, such as famine or natural disasters, were typically localized and could be attributed to external forces like nature or divine will. In contrast, the risks of modernity, such as nuclear accidents, environmental degradation, and financial crises, are human-made, often stemming from technological innovation and industrial practices. These risks are diffuse, transcending national boundaries and affecting entire populations. Characteristics of the risk society. Beck identifies several key characteristics of the risk society that distinguish it from earlier forms of social organization. 1. Globalization of risk. Risks in modern society are not confined to specific regions or groups. For instance, climate change, a product of industrialization, affects the entire planet, disregarding borders. Similarly, the 1986 Chernobyl nuclear disaster demonstrated how a localized event could have far-reaching consequences, spreading radioactive fallout across multiple countries, too. Uncertainty and knowledge dependence. In the risk society, scientific knowledge becomes both a solution and a source of anxiety. While science and technology promise to mitigate risks, they also create new, unforeseen dangers. Moreover, risks are often invisible or intangible, requiring expert knowledge to identify and assess them. For example, pollution or radiation cannot be perceived directly, making society reliant on scientists to measure and interpret these hazards. Individualization of responsibility. The risk society places significant responsibility on individuals to navigate and mitigate risks. This individualization reflects a shift in societal values, where collective welfare takes a backseat to personal accountability. For example, individuals are often expected to adopt sustainable practices, such as recycling or reducing their carbon footprint, even though the structural causes of environmental degradation lie in corporate and governmental actions. Number 4, the role of media. Media plays a crucial role in constructing and amplifying risks. By bringing distant or abstract dangers into public consciousness, media shapes how risks are perceived and prioritized. This phenomenon contributes to what Beck calls the virtualization of risk, where people react more strongly to mediated representations of risks than to actual threats. Reflexive modernization. One of Beck's central concepts is reflexive modernization, which refers to the self-confrontation of modern society with the unintended consequences of its progress. Reflexivity implies that society becomes increasingly aware of the risks it creates, prompting a critical examination of modernity itself. This reflexivity is evident in debates about issues such as climate change, genetic engineering, and artificial intelligence. While these technologies offer immense potential, they also raise ethical, social, and environmental concerns. Reflexive modernization forces society to grapple with questions of responsibility, justice, and sustainability, challenging the traditional faith in linear progress. Class, inequality, and risk distribution. In industrial society, wealth and resources were the primary determinants of social stratification. Beck argues that in the risk society, risk replaces wealth as a key factor in social inequality. Risks are distributed unevenly, with marginalized and vulnerable groups often bearing the brunt of hazards. For example, low-income communities are more likely to live near industrial facilities or hazardous waste sites, exposing them to environmental and health risks. Similarly, developing countries disproportionately suffer the consequences of climate change, despite contributing less to global emissions. This unequal distribution of risks highlights the intersection of environmental justice and social inequality. Risk society and democracy. Beck raises critical questions about the implications of the risk society for democracy and governance. As risks become more complex and global, traditional political institutions struggle to address them effectively. Nation-states designed to manage localized issues are ill-equipped to tackle transnational risks like pandemics or global warming. This mismatch creates a governance gap, leading to the rise of subpolitics, where non-state actors, such as corporations, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and social movements, play a significant role in managing risks. For instance, international organizations like the United Nations and grassroots movements like Fridays for Future have emerged as key players in addressing global challenges. Beck also critiques the technocratic approach to risk management, which relies heavily on expert knowledge and often marginalizes public participation. He argues that democratizing risk governance requires greater transparency, inclusivity, and accountability. Citizens must be empowered to engage in decisions that affect their lives, even when these decisions involve complex scientific or technical issues. Relevance in contemporary society. Risk society remains profoundly relevant in understanding the challenges of the 21st century. The COVID-19 pandemic, for instance, exemplifies many of Beck's insights. The virus emerged as an unforeseen consequence of globalization, demonstrating how interconnected and fragile modern societies are. It also highlighted the uneven distribution of risks, with poorer populations suffering disproportionately due to limited access to healthcare and economic resources. Similarly, the escalating climate crisis underscores the global nature of modern risks and the need for collective action. While Beck's work predates the full-scale recognition of climate change, his analysis of environmental risks provides a valuable framework for understanding the current crisis. The risk society compels us to question the sustainability of industrial practices and to rethink our relationship with nature. Beck's ideas also resonate in debates about technological risks, such as those associated with artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and cybersecurity. As these technologies evolve, they raise profound ethical and existential questions, illustrating the tension between progress and risk that lies at the heart of the risk society. Criticisms and limitations. While Beck's risk society has been widely influential, it has also faced criticism. Some scholars argue that Beck overstates the novelty of modern risks, noting that earlier societies also dealt with systemic and widespread hazards, such as plagues or colonial exploitation. Others question the applicability of Beck's framework to non-Western contexts, where traditional risks and social structures may coexist with modern hazards. Another critique is that Beck's focus on risks sometimes downplays the enduring significance of wealth and economic inequality in shaping social relations. While risks are indeed a crucial aspect of contemporary life, they often intersect with traditional forms of inequality, reinforcing existing power dynamics. Finally, Beck's optimistic vision of reflexive modernization has been challenged by the persistence of denialism and resistance to change. Despite widespread awareness of risks like climate change, political and economic systems often prioritize short-term interests over long-term sustainability, undermining the potential for reflexive transformation. Ulrich Beck's Risk Society Towards a New Modernity offers a groundbreaking perspective on the complexities of modern life. By highlighting the risks generated by industrial society, Beck challenges us to rethink the relationship between progress, security, and sustainability. His insights into the globalization of risk, the role of science and media, and the dynamics of reflexive modernization provide a valuable framework for understanding contemporary challenges. While Beck's work is not without limitations, its relevance remains undiminished. From climate change to pandemics to technological innovation, the risk society continues to shape our world in profound ways. As we navigate an increasingly uncertain future, Beck's call for a more inclusive, transparent, and democratic approach to risk governance is more urgent than ever.